The Department of Justice Mildura is located at the Justice Service Centre in Mildura, which provides services such as community correctional services, consumer affairs, parole services, dispute resolution services, and births, deaths, and marriage services. The Community Correctional Services in which I am doing my placement works with people who are on Community Corrections Orders, which is commonly referred to as a CCO, and their main aim is to administer and enforce custodial and community-based services. Community corrections plays a significant role in ensuring the safety of the community by rehabilitating offenders and diverting offenders who are low risk from prison in an attempt to help break the cycle of reoffending. Community Correctional Services, referred to as CCS, is a division of Corrections Victoria and oversees the delivery of community corrections in Victoria. A community corrections order is a court-imposed order that is either an alternative to imprisonment or is a condition of their release on parole from prison. An offender who is placed on a CCO as a form of punishment by the court are allocated to the community corrections team. If an offender is placed on a CCO as a condition of parole, they are then allocated to the parole team. A community corrections order has the following conditions. You must not commit a further offence. You must comply with any obligation or requirement prescribed by Regulation 17 of the Sentencing Regulation Act 2011. You must report within 2 working days of commencing the order. You must report to and receive visits from a case manager. You must notify change of address or employment within 2 working days. You must not leave the state of Victoria without first getting permission from your case manager. And you must obey all lawful instructions and directions from your case manager. These may be written or verbal. A CCO should have at least one, if not more, of the following conditions tailored to suit the need of the individual: unpaid community work, treatment and rehabilitation, supervision, non-association, residence restriction or exclusion, place or area exclusion, which may be electronically monitored, curfew, which also may be electronically monitored, alcohol exclusion, judicial monitoring, justice plan, or any other condition that the court deems appropriate to address the offences. As a community corrections order is a court-imposed order, it is compulsory for people to comply. If a person does not comply with one or any of the conditions on their order, or they continue to miss appointments without a reasonable excuse, they will be breaching their community corrections order. They may receive a warning from CCS management, receive additional unpaid community work hours, have their curfew extended, or be issued with an infringement notice. Another consequence could be that the person will need to return to the court that their CCO was originally ordered in to be heard in front of a judge or a magistrate. If the defendant is successfully established as guilty, they could be sentenced to a maximum of 3 months imprisonment for contravening the order. In addition, they may be resentenced to their original charges, receive a fine, and or have their bond forfeited in full or in part. As stated earlier, a CCO is a court-imposed order which makes it compulsory for people to comply. However, if a person cannot comply with the conditions on their CCO, they can be advised that they can apply to the court to have their order varied or cancelled, as long as they are aware of the consequences that they may face. Community corrections work with people from different races, ethnic backgrounds, ages, genders, and socio-economic backgrounds. It could be said that we have a high rate of offenders between the ages of 18 and 25, and also a high rate of those are identified as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. It is also said that over 60% of the offenders in the Community Correctional Services Victoria are male. Community correction orders allow offenders an alternative to a prison sentence. So when offenders are placed on community corrections orders, the main role of a community corrections worker is to case manage. According to the Australian Association of Social Workers 2010, a case manager uses a method providing services whereby they collaboratively assess the needs of the client and the client's family when appropriate and arranges, monitors, evaluates, advocates, and coordinates for a package of multiple services to meet each individual client's complex needs. A condition of their order is to report to the Corrections Office for supervision on a needs basis decided by the case manager. At the beginning of an order, the frequency of the supervision is weekly, and depending on how well they comply, they can be pushed out to fortnightly or bi-monthly. When offenders come in for their supervision, the role of a case manager is to review the time since the last visit and explore how they are managing with the conditions on their order. If the offender displays any issues, the case manager will deal with them directly or create the appropriate referrals. Managing offenders in the community provides a range of financial and social benefits and proves to be a cost-effective alternative to imprisonment. It allows offenders to maintain a connection with their community by retaining employment, social networks and accommodation. Whilst there are positives with community corrections orders, there are a lot of issues faced. Individual issues faced by the offender can include stigma attached to the service, a lack of motivation or will to comply with their order, a lack of transportation, lack of finances, homelessness, being surrounded by people with offending behaviours, knowing how to work the system, and simply lacking the interest to comply. Whilst these issues are all a priority, a major one to be addressed would be their lack of interest in community work. In 2015 and 16, 803,783 hours of mandatory community work was completed, which is the equivalent to 24.3 million in value to the Victorian community, and more than 800 Victorian organisations have benefited from the offenders' skills and work. Whilst the number of hours completed is quite high, it is not recognised how many hours are left uncompleted. Some offenders comply with all their conditions with the exception of community work, which could be for many reasons. They may lack the transport to get to community work, they may not be able to value the severity of completing community work, or to keep it simple, they may just not care about community work itself. An issue stated earlier was that offenders know how to work the system. Some offenders have worked out how they can just get by without non-compliance or breaching their order. Offenders navigate their way through their orders by handing in numerous medical certificates for supervision and/or community work, and by complying with most of their conditions on their order. They can only receive a certain number of absences before being issued with a warning, and following a warning is a breach of order, which is when they start attending again. Some offenders have a significant amount of involvement over the years with the justice system and are not daunted by the prospect of further punishment, which is another individual issue in community corrections. This issue in turn results in a structural issue, as it becomes difficult to engage someone who is not unsettled by the thought of not complying with their order, which could result in further punishments. Structural issues in community corrections can include the difficulty of working with the individual issues, a lack of resources, lack of time to work with the offenders, lack of training required to complete the job to satisfaction, and a lack of community work sites. In community corrections, a case manager's role has been previously to tick the boxes as such and refer offenders on to other services who can assist them. This has provided difficulty as workers may possess the ability to work further with the clients. However, the organisation and their job title says that it isn't their responsibility. This will change in the near future once the reform has come into action early in 2017. However, there will still be the issue of the lack of qualifications required to undertake a job in community corrections. With the reform, qualifications are a requirement to attain employment in the department. However, it still poses an issue for current staff who will be underqualified. As part of the role, staff are to undergo a certificate in community corrections if they do not hold other qualifications. However, other staff who do are more resourced and equipped to work with such a vulnerable client group. Staff who do not hold qualifications can be disadvantaged and unprepared when working with offenders. With training behind you, it makes it more possible to understand offending behaviours and work with people who have committed crimes, as you have been educated on how to do so. People without a qualification in community corrections lack the ability to work with a client as efficiently as those who do, purely based on the education they withhold. Another issue faced by community corrections is the lack of community work sites. Not all offenders are suited to all community work sites, which makes it difficult to administer them. The lack of community corrections work sites means that it delays people from completing their order, and it puts it on hold. Even if they are complying with all other areas of their order, if they do not finish the community work, they cannot finish the order.